Let us know where you're watching from. Call in. We'd love to hear from you. And I'm going to close this out with a strong message that I believe is going to help you. Prophetic insight on the 2024 United States election. I've titled this, I've never spoken this before, 7 considerations for Christians during election year. 7 considerations for Christians during election year. I want you to share the broadcast if you would. Get this out to as many people. It'll help them or ruin their day, but it'll have some type of impact, and it'll be good. Great to have you on X. Everybody's watching Lincoln, Nebraska, Jeremy Murphy on X. Glad to have you. So Bangor, Maine. My Uncle Ted's preaching there right now. Who's that? Jamie Alexander. Great to have you. Jamie in Arlington, Texas. Glad to have you. Los Angeles in the house. Oh yeah, we're here all week live, and then Friday, I'm going to be live in Los Angeles. You're welcome to come. We just broke 500 registrations for that with half the week to go. You can join me in LA, and then on the 17th on Saturday, you can join me in Phoenix, Arizona. All that's on revivaltoday.com events. There's Revival Phoenix at the Hilton Phoenix Tapatio Cliffs Resort. The day before, Friday at 7 p.m. in Los Angeles, we will be Los Angeles, August 16th, the Westin Bonaventure Hotel and Suites, 404 South Figueroa Street, Los Angeles, California. And you can register. It's free to attend. revivaltoday.com events. If you would like VIP seating and to meet me afterwards, it's also free. It's free. We'd love to have you there. I'd like to meet you in person. 7 considerations for Christians during election year. Acts chapter 16. This is after Paul got released from prison. The next morning, the city officials sent the police. You can put the monitors probably where you had them on my mic. It was just with the other feed, I had you lower it. The Bible says, after they were released from prison, the next morning the city officials sent the police to tell the jailer, let those men go. So the jailer told Paul, the city officials have said, you and Silas are free to leave the prison. Go in peace. But Paul replied, they have publicly beaten us without a trial and put us in prison. And we are Roman citizens. So now they want us to leave secretly? Certainly not. Let them come themselves to release us. When the police reported this, the city officials were alarmed to learn that Paul and Silas were Roman citizens. So they came to the jail and apologized to them. Then they brought them out and begged them to leave the city. Then I want you to turn over to Acts 22. Acts 22. Paul's about to get beaten again. He had that happen quite a bit. Acts 22:24. The commander brought Paul inside and ordered him to be lashed with whips to make him confess his crime. He wanted to find out why the crowd had become so furious. When they tied Paul down to lash him, Paul said to the officer standing there, is it legal for you to whip a Roman citizen who hasn't even been tried? Is it legal for you to whip a Roman citizen without a conviction? So when the officer heard this, he went to the commander and asked, what are you doing? This man is a Roman citizen. So the commander went over and asked Paul, tell me, are you a Roman citizen? I certainly am, Paul replied. I am too, the commander muttered, and it cost me plenty. Paul answered, I didn't buy mine. I'm a citizen by birth. The soldiers who were about to interrogate Paul quickly withdrew when they heard he was a Roman citizen, and the commander was frightened because he had ordered him bound and whipped. The next day, the commander ordered the leading priest into session with Jewish high council, and they released Paul to stand before him. Paul was not some stupid patsy that allowed the government to do whatever they want. Paul was aware of his rights as a Roman citizen. He didn't allow himself to get beaten anytime they wanted to. He didn't allow himself to get whipped when it was illegal. He knew the law, and he stood up for the law. So Paul's the one that wrote the book of Romans. Anybody that interprets Romans 13, that a Christian is just to allow the government to do whatever they want and obey them, doesn't know what they're talking about, because Paul, the author of it, didn't do that. When they got ready to whip him, he said, is it legal for you to whip a Roman citizen who's not been convicted? Oh, we didn't know you were a Roman citizen. Well, I am, so don't whip me. You're free to leave the prison. Oh, they want us to leave in secret after they jailed us publicly? Tell the city officials to come here and apologize themselves because what they did was wrong. There's 2, right? We just broke 30,000 on the week. Thank you, everybody, for your giving. So there's 2 instances where you see that Paul did not teach not knowing your rights, not knowing the Constitution. Paul knew his rights better than the police knew the rights. Paul knew the rights better than the judge knew the right. Paul knew the rights better than the jailer knew the rights. Paul was well versed in his rights as a Roman citizen. Number one, 7 considerations for Christians during election year. Number one, reject any voice that tells you voting is not important. Number one, 7 considerations for Christians during election year. Reject any voice that puts it in your head or in your spirit that elections are not important. I mean, no matter who wins, God's still on the throne. No, people won't say it outright that voting's not important. They'll just say stupid religious things. I mean, no matter who wins in November, God's still on the throne. Tell that to people in Syria. Tell that to people in Somalia. Tell that to people in Yemen. Tell that to Christians in Iran. Oh, don't worry, who's in charge? God's on the throne. They're getting butchered because of leadership. Leadership matters. The Bible says when the wicked rule, the nation mourns. When the righteous rule, the people are happy. Do you know what's behind that? There's one preacher who doesn't like me very much because I called him out on it on social media because I don't like it. He said the church shouldn't lean left and the church shouldn't lean right. The church should stand. And all the people stood up in the church and clapped. You know why? Because that's a bold way of glorifying having no spine and having no stand on issues. We shouldn't lean left or lean right. We should stand. Tell me what issue you're going to stand on that doesn't lean left or right. Those are stupid things that Christian leaders say during election years. And I'm putting a stop to it on this broadcast. When you hear people talk like that, you're listening to what word can you use that isn't offensive to some community? You're listening to an unintelligent person. My apologies to the unintelligent community. You're listening to an unintelligent person that has found, it's amazing how pastors, of which I'm one, I am a pastor. It's amazing how pastors find a way during election years to make it sound like rather than take a stand on the issues, I found this higher spiritual way of doing it. I want to say something else while my blood pressure's up. Do you notice that the only time they tell you not to be political is if you take a stand on something that's biblical and holy? There's nothing wrong with being a church leader and taking a stand for open borders, for using your church to house illegal migrants and gangsters. You can do that. Nobody tells those churches don't be political. Nobody tells the churches that are funded by George Soros to help the people in the human trafficking of minors through the southern border don't be political. But if you take a stand for a child's right to be born, for anything godly, don't get political. No, you're not going to pull that crap here. If one side gets no pushback for anything they believe, then don't think you're going to make me feel bad for believing the Bible and for speaking about it. I would mark any minister that makes it like they found some type of higher Buddhist enlightenment because they don't talk about what's going on in America. It's a disguised spinelessness is the kindest way I can say it. I guarantee if you scroll on their Instagram back to the middle of March 2020, they have an announcement like this. Hey family, just coming on to say that because of what's going on in the world right now, till we get a handle on this virus, we're not going to be meeting right now. Yeah, that's who they are. You want to see who somebody is? Scroll back to their Instagram mid-March 2020. Church shouldn't lean left or lean right. The church should stand. Yay, I like that preaching because it makes me feel good about being a loser who doesn't say anything and doesn't bother anybody. How come everybody's allowed to voice? I mean, are you kidding me? Are you freaking kidding me? That you're allowed to come several hundred people on a college campus and call for the death of Jewish people and nobody says anything. And then Christians are supposed to shut up about what we believe. You can kiss my gospel grits. I'm going to be as loud about what the Bible says now than I ever had in my life. And you should never let anybody shame you for believing the Bible. Every pervert, every person calling for the genocide of the entire Jewish people are boldly stating what they believe, and you're going to let some lunatic make you feel bad for speaking what the Bible says? I haven't mentioned Trump much. I think my wife mentioned him. I don't think I mentioned him in this broadcast, or Kamala. But I'm going to tell you something that encapsulates the problem with Christianity to me, is when Trump was running against Biden, Biden called for transgender surgeries for minors to be subsidized with tax dollars. You never heard a Christian say, Biden shouldn't say stuff like that. But then if Trump says hell or damn or the SH word, he shouldn't talk like that. Why is it more offensive? I'm not for either of them. I'm not here to promote cursing. I'm saying, why is it that one person gets put on the microscope and it's more offensive to you that he's mean and uses hateful speech than somebody that wants to chemically castrate a 6-year-old boy? You want to know why? Because you're public school brainwashed. That's why. You go to church, you have a Bible, you take Instagram pictures with a soft filter of you reading the Bible with a coffee in the morning, but you don't have an ounce of God in your spirit. You'd have bowed to the idols in Babylon as quick as everybody else did. You're no Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, but I'm not talking to those people tonight. I'm putting a fire in your bones that the same way everybody else is allowed to say what they want from the rooftops, the Church of the Lord Jesus Christ in the United States should be vocal and bold about what they believe. Number one, reject any voice that tells you voting's not important. A Christian must vote. Now, I want to say this right now. I don't know what the law is in Texas where I pastor. I should, but I don't. I know what it is in Pennsylvania. I want this Sunday when I'm in Texas, if it's legal to get people registered to vote in church, I want to do it in Texas. This coming Sunday when I'm there. And then I know we already did it in Pennsylvania, but I didn't put much time to it. 2 Sundays from now, I want to get everybody signed up to vote in Pennsylvania that's in our church. Actually, everybody in the whole state, you're welcome to come to my church and get registered to vote. I'm not telling you who to vote for. I'm not telling you who not to vote for. I'm telling you to vote. I already talked about policies. I'm not endorsing candidates. I'm talking to you about policy. Reject any voice. So please have that set up for me. This Sunday in Texas, next Sunday at Revival Today Church, Pittsburgh. Reject any voice that tells you 7 considerations for Christians during an election year. Number 1, reject any voice that tells you voting's not important. And again, nobody comes out and says that. They just say those little stupid one-liners. Whether Kamala wins or whether Trump wins, all I know is Jesus is still on the throne. You're an idiot. You're a stupid person. What does that have to do with anything? That's it. That makes as much sense as saying, whether Kamala wins or whether Trump wins, all I know is grass is green. Those things don't have anything to do with each other. Jesus being on the throne does not help a nation by itself. I know you don't hear preachers talk like that, but that's a fact. All I know is no matter who wins the election, God's will is going to be done. You're an idiot. You think God's will is always done no matter what? Explain the murders that happened today. Explain rapes that happened today. It takes a special form of religious stupidity to believe and make statements like that. And again, it's a way to be a coward and sound spiritual. And you're not spiritual, and you are a coward. Spiritual people get involved. Elijah confronted Ahab. Where do you get this apolitical? I'm going to tell you what you've allowed to happen. You've allowed the public school system to turn 100 million Christians into people that have the voice of 8 people. Because you allowed the terms of the battle to be defined by your enemy. Number 1, reject any voice that tells you voting is not important. A Christian must vote. No matter what happens, God is God. Tell that to the women that live in Somalia. Leadership matters. The Bible says that. And our leaders, we have a say in it. We have a say. I would also add this. I don't know, maybe I should look at my notes ahead of time. I wrote them, but I can't remember what I have for the next 6 points. I would also reject any voice that makes it seem like you don't matter. What does our vote really do anyway? Let me tell you something. The last election, however you feel it went, whether you think it was, I'm on YouTube, so I have to speak in coded language. Obviously, we know all elections throughout history have been completely fair and square. But even if you don't believe that, the last election was decided by 70,000 votes in 4 states, maybe 80,000. Your votes matter. You have a say. So vote. Number 2, reject any teaching that sovereignty relieves man from involvement. Number 2, so number 1 is reject any voice that tells you voting is not important. Number 2, reject any teaching that sovereignty relieves man from involvement. Well, God's sovereign. Yes, He is. And in His sovereignty, He chose His word. And in His word, He tells you to get your butt moving and make an impact. Jesus is the one who grew Revival Today Church. But He did it with us in partnership. He's the head, we're the body. Don't allow people to put a theology in you that, listen to people. Christians are like totally dysfunctional in society because of this type of teaching. What do you do when you're waiting for your breakthrough? You don't wait till you die. You don't wait. You take action. Life is about taking action. How many of you know Goliath taunted Israel for 40 days and 40 nights? But when that cycle of 40 days ended, because 40 represents a cycle of completion, that's why it didn't end because it was the 40th day. It ended because a 17-year-old took a rock and put it in Goliath's head. Reject any teaching that sovereignty alleviates man of responsibility. You have a write it in the comments. I have a responsibility. I have a responsibility to my generation. I have a responsibility to my country. What responsibility? To not allow evil men and evil women to. Why are you going to let probably 4% of the population shame you into silence and take the country over? Because you think you're following some higher spiritual way. We need to just pray. No, you don't. You need to pray and you need to move. If my people that are called by my name will humble themselves and pray, turn from their wicked ways, repent, then I will hear from heaven and I will revive their land. Do you think God is going to destroy America? I think God is going to react to our prayers and actions. That's what I believe based on the word of God. Whatever I bind on earth is bound in heaven. Whatever I loose on earth is loosed in heaven. Number 3, don't let any idiot convolute the facts and get you to think that voting is worship. Number 3, voting is not worship. These people worship Trump. No, we voted for a candidate. So shut up. You're not voting for how can these Christians lay down all their ideals to vote for a man who's been married 3 times? I'm not making him my Lord and Savior. And remember this, I want you to write it in the comments and write it in your notes. The election is not between Donald Trump and Jesus Christ. It's between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. So whatever light you want to shine on Trump, shine it on the other person too. Number 3, remember that voting is not worship. I'm not voting for a Lord and Savior. That's why it doesn't matter to me what their religion is. It doesn't matter. My wife brought up Harmeet Dillon and how much flack she took because they let her pray. She's a Sikh. She prayed at the Republican National Convention. And all the Christians got upset. How could they let her pray to her God? Let me tell you something. Harmeet Dillon did more for churches during COVID than denominations did. Denominational leaders told pastors if they didn't shut their, full gospel ones, said if they don't shut their churches down, they're going to revoke their credentials. She, for free, stood with pastors to keep churches open. I would stand with her 1,000 times over before I'd stand with those other so-called Christians. Number 3, voting's not worship. Don't let anybody make you feel bad. How can you lay down? So you're a pastor and you're willing to vote for someone who's had multiple affairs? No, I know. I know Kamala's pure as the driven snow, freaking Anne of Green Gables over there. What a stupid way of thinking. Number 4. Hope you're enjoying this. 7 considerations for Christians during an election year. Number 4, no candidate has the power to derail God's covenant in your life. That's why I wrote that book. Put the graphic on the screen if you would. How to Dominate in a Wicked Nation. Lessons learned from the life of Abraham. Now, I said all that up front about voting and all that. I'm not sitting up on election night biting my fingernails till they're bloody, because if a certain candidate doesn't win, I don't know what I'm going to do. My life is not determined by the federal government or the executive branch of the government. You can put Satan as president of the United States and his 9 top demons as the Supreme Court justices, and I will still thrive in what God's called me to do. So as much as I'm telling you leadership's important, and it is, nobody can stop God's covenant active in my life. Unfortunately, that's not true for everybody, which is why leadership's important. People don't carry faith. People don't carry the gift of faith. People don't walk in the power of the Holy Ghost. But that's not you. You do. I do. Good to see you, Cindy. Cindy, I believe that Cindy Scalzi, if that's you from New Jersey, we love you and your husband, Jason. Michael on the app. So I hope I'm helping you today for the questions you have to answer as a Christian. How could you sell your soul to vote for a man who speaks like that? I'm not selling my soul. I'm voting for someone to be the head of the executive branch, which is one of the 3 branches of the federal government. So freaking relax. No candidate, I want you to write it down, no candidate has the power to derail God's plan for my life. I'm going to send you this book for everyone that gives. Pop it back up, 412-446-2332. You should read it. I wrote it after Biden won the election to help Christians and their little frightened selves understand that our father, Abraham, the father of our faith, was the only one who had a relationship with God in all of Canaan. He was surrounded by blood-sacrificing pagans who hated him, and he bought their land and increased and took over and had 318 trained men, a private military. They couldn't stop him. You can't curse who God has blessed. Write it down and say it. No candidate has the power to derail God's covenant in my life. It's just if I have the choice, I'd rather have less challenges than more challenges. But if you give me more, I'll still win all of them. So I'm going to make a wise vote, but I'm not going to wake up in a sweat as they count the votes. Oh my God, what am I going to do? He's going to be the worst. America can't survive another 4 years. Oh, let me tell you something. As long as my feet are on this soil, America's going to be all right. Because greater is he that's in me than all those that are in the world. Elijah was the only one that hadn't sold out. And what he carried was enough to overthrow what Ahab and Jezebel were doing. And we're now under a better covenant with better promises. So I'm telling you to vote, but I'm telling you if the vote doesn't go the way you want, keep going forward and taking ground and sticking it to the devil. Would you say that at Revival Today Church, I've had a government cooperation in building the church? How has it stopped me? It hasn't come close. You can't curse what God has blessed, and you can't stop what you didn't start. Number 5. This is 7 considerations for Christians during the United States election. This next one does not apply to all countries, but it applies here. Number 5, understand the difference between national government and local government. Understand the difference between national government and local government. I wrote this down. The United States has 3,143 counties or county equivalents. This includes 3,006 counties as well as 137 county equivalents which include independent cities, boroughs, parishes, and census areas, depending on the state. America was supernaturally drawn up in this area, that it doesn't run. Don't miss this. This will help you. It'll help you not be worried like I'm not worried. I'm not just not worried because of the Bible. I'm not worried because I understand how ingenious the framers of the Constitution and the people who set this country up were. See, in Belgium, the Prime Minister of Belgium can go to the EU meeting, hear edicts from the World Economic Forum, and then come back and pass them in Belgium. The president does not have the power to do that in the United States. America does not run from the top down. America runs from the bottom up. The sheriff in Washington County, Pennsylvania, can keep the president from coming to Washington County, Pennsylvania. So to take America over, you can't do it by taking over one country. You basically have to take over 50 independent states. And then in those states, you have to take in all the specific counties. So you basically would have to take over 3,143 places to take this country over. Did you notice what happened during the Biden presidency when everybody was saying the nation was going to collapse? What happened? There were some states that enacted all of his policies, and there were other states that said, not only are we not enacting his policies, we're going to go the complete other direction. So freaking relax. When Herod took over, what did God tell him? He said, go down to Egypt until Herod's dead. Write this down. There's always a place for me to go. Where we live is so wicked. Didn't freaking move. Because you're a little complaining about it, it's not going to change. Don't know, well, we're here, we believe we're going to change it. You're not. All you do is complain. You don't have enough power to drive a crippled demon out of the place. So just move to where it's righteous. See, when I see people write things online, America's finished. One person said that, America's finished. I wrote back to him, I'm guessing you don't live in Southlake, Texas. There's certain places I could take you to where you'd think America's having the best time it ever has, because it is. Southlake, Texas, Big Sky, Montana, Wexford, Pennsylvania, Fort Worth, Texas, and I could name a bunch of other places. So you have people, I'm sorry that you live in San Francisco, but America's not San Francisco. America's not downtown St. Louis. I mean, you take where I'm at right now. There's a world of difference between downtown Pittsburgh and 30 minutes away. I mean, if you go 45 minutes away, you're in Amish country. You won't even know. Look at the lockdown. There are places where if you went there without a mask, you were kicked out. And there were other places that if you wore a mask, everybody looked at you like you had 9. What are you doing here? We don't wear masks here. Northern Arizona, rural Nevada. There's a lot of country to take over. That's why they want everybody in 15-minute cities, but it's not working. Look what Governor Ron DeSantis did during the lockdowns. He wouldn't enforce anything the president wanted to enforce. He wouldn't enforce anything that anybody wanted enforced. And they couldn't do anything because the governor is the head of that state. And then in states like New Mexico, where you had a wicked governor that wouldn't allow more than 20 people in a building, we were at Choose Life Church in Hobbs, New Mexico, and had 880, and the police were there. No one was wearing a mask in the whole building. And that was in a strict lockdown state. But in that county, the sheriff wasn't on board. So, that works both ways. If the candidate you want wins, it doesn't ruin the nation. And if the candidate you do want wins, you still need to take action. It's why I believe you actually saw the best of the church the last 4 years. Because anytime the church feels like the wrong person's in office, the spirit-filled church, they start fasting and praying and moving. And then when their guy wins, let me tell you something. If Donald Trump wins the election, you better not go to sleep All it does is open, it takes more obstacles out of the way to move forward. And you should seize it. How many of you will seize it? How many of you are going to make up your mind, whatever happens in November, I'm going forward? Number 6, reject any doomsday thoughts. I've had intelligent people that wrote me in 2020. Now that Biden won, in fact, I could pull the text up if you want. I'm talking about somebody in high-level government that's probably a billionaire. America will not be able to survive 4 years of the Joe Biden presidency. Turns out Joe Biden couldn't even survive 4 years of the Joe Biden presidency, actually. But he wrote, we won't be able to survive 4 years of the Biden presidency. They're going to pack the Supreme Court. They're going to do this, this, and this. And it's going to permanently make it where America's a communist place. And guess what? On paper, they had the ability to do everything that man said. But what happened? They had 51 votes to 49 in the Senate to pack the Supreme Court, to take away the Second Amendment, to take away the First Amendment. And right when everything was about to go through, Joe Manchin and the lady from Arizona that are Democrats both said, we're not voting with you. And they went the other way, and it ruined everything. And then it was all set to go, where the mandates for the you-know-what were going to be permanent, and then that fell through. The devil is great at threatening, and he's very poor at executing. I want you to write something down. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. Don't allow your mouth to parrot what the devil wants you to say. This country's finished. Shut up. Start saying stuff like, thank you, Father, that you've put me here for such a... What did Esther do? What's the story of Esther? Esther, this place is finished. They're going to kid you here. They're going to hang all of our people. No, I'm here for such a time as this. I'm going to fast. I'm going to get anointed, and I'm going to do something to change my nation. That's why you're watching tonight. You're alive for such a time as this. Listen to me. You're alive for such a time as this. You're here not to watch what wicked people do. You're here to be a righteous roadblock for the plan of the devil in your generation. Number 7, the wicked are destined to lose, and the righteous shall possess the land. The wicked are destined to lose. Psalm 37. The wicked will perish in the land, but the righteous shall possess the land and dwell therein forever. This is our time. The black cloud has been lifted. The plans, how can you not see it? The plans of the World Economic Forum have failed. I mean, even basically you have two kinds of Christians, you know? You have ones that focused on all the wicked things that happen at the Olympics, but even in the midst of that, about everybody that won a medal preached a sermon, quoted scripture. We're in a great time to be alive. What a time to be alive. This church is growing. Revival Today Church Fort Worth is growing. My friend Russell Johnson in Seattle, in godless Seattle. Is it like, 3 campuses now packed multiple times a Sunday? Your life's not determined by the federal government. Your life's determined by your faith in God. And faith in God overcomes every obstacle. Faith in God moves every mountain. Stop letting people put it in your head that there's some ruling class in charge that has the power to dictate your life. Because if you believe that, you're going to be one of the Christians I grew up with. Oh, Obama's in. The economy's going to be bad. What do you care if the economy's bad? You were broke when Ronald Reagan was president. You were broke when Clinton was president. You were broke when George Bush was president. Maybe the president's not the problem. You know, if you're poor and you're 60, you've been poor through 8 presidential administrations. You know what that shows you? Democrat or Republican, you suck. Maybe it's time to point the finger at you and realize my life is not in other people's hands. My life is in my hands. And you might not like that, but you can go find any other minister that's going to tell you about how God does everything. I'm telling you, God gave you the power. And religion tries to sit you down and make it where it's all in God's hand, but it's not. God put the power in your hands. And I'm preaching to a mighty army right now. A mighty army of older women. Mighty army of older men. That your time's not over. God has something for you to do. A mighty army of people my age in their 40s and 50s. It's time to stand up. Do something. Get on your school board. Run for office locally. Do something. Don't be a bystander. Make something happen. You have the power. Look at the people that get elected. They're barely functional human beings, semi-functional alcoholics that can barely talk without slurring their speech. You're full of the Holy Ghost. Quit watching the news and start making the news like I've been doing. Make some noise. Let this world know you lived here before you go up to heaven. Hallelujah! You're not a victim. You're a victor. Greater is he that lives in you than he that's in the world. We're in charge. The church has been given authority over all the power of the devil. The church, me, you, has authority over all the power of the devil. Young people, that's why we got this Bible school. Get moving. What are you going to do? Go study English. You already speak English. Preach in English. You know enough to communicate. If not, draw pictures. Get moving. Find what God's will is for your life, and let's get this thing done together. If you're with me, wherever you're watching, shout yes. Shout it loud enough that I can hear you if you're in another state. Let God know there's still at this present time a remnant that has not bowed to Baal or kissed his face. I want to know where they're at. I'm going to show you how much power we have. I'm going to show you what the church can do. Because as we move, we're going to do something in the spirit that the devil doesn't have the power to stop. We're doing it right now. I'm going to show you what took place in Pittsburgh the first year that we started the church. One of the things that catapulted us to another level. I'm looking for partners to stand with us. You see that number up in the top right of your screen, 31,945? That should be 100,000 minimum. There should be one person that writes a check for larger than that amount right now. Let's get moving. You know, that's why you're watching me. If you put that money in, not only are you going to be blessed, that money's going to be used to kick the devil in his little baby nuts and crack his skull and take people out of his hand and see America have the revival that people have been prophesying. It's time to move on the prophecies. You want to know prophetic insight on the 2024 United States election? I've got a good feeling in my spirit. The righteous shall possess the land. Say it with me. The righteous shall possess the land. This is our time. This is the church's time. This is our final charge before we're called up to meet Jesus Christ and receive our reward. I don't know about you, but I know about me. I'm going to run. I'm going to win. I'm going to see the greatest victories that I've ever seen. Packed churches, big crusades. This is our hour. I'm believing for 1,000 partners. Go to the phones. I want to hear from you. If this has stirred you in any way, I want you to join us formally. I'm giving the call. I know you're supposed to be embarrassed to talk like that. I'm not. I want to hear from you. I want to get you organized. I want you in Pittsburgh. I want you in Texas. Let's get moving. I want to see you in LA this weekend. I want to see you in Phoenix this weekend. I guarantee you're going to get more out of seeing me than you will at some Republican rally. They don't have anything for you to do. But God has work for us to do. And together, there's enough people watching this right now. The devil doesn't have, if he had 3 hells to draw from, he doesn't have enough to stop what's in me and you.